It was like the week of Gorka last week as he beats down CNN and fake news all around the country, and an amazing display of standing up to fake news. They can't handle it. You know, I'll give you more fake news today. You have a ABC News Washington Post poll, and the president has an approval rating at 36%. You think, wow, this is horrible. This is terrible. No president has ever been this low. Well, there's one thing you need to know about this so-called scientific survey. 52%, more Democrats than Republicans. That's basically what it is. You've got a sample of, 35% Democrats and Republicans, the partisan divides, and independents added to the. It's so phony and fake and fraudulent. It's like the same polls before the election happens. Anyway, joining us now is the man himself. Dr. Sebastian Gorka is with us, White House senior aide. How are you?
Very well, Sean. Great to be back on the show.
It's great to have you back. It's what you were saying is factually accurate. I mean, Nick at Night is beating CNN. Nick at Night is running 50-year-old, maybe longer, maybe 60-year-old Yogi Bear, Hey Boo Boo, Picnic Basket reruns, and Full House 25-year-old reruns of that show. And the Olsen twins are in their 30s, for crying out loud, married. Well, it's insane how bad they're doing, and it's 24 hours of establishment destroyed Trump news. That's what this has become, both on MSNBC and CNN. There's no variation at all whatsoever.
It's truly become an obsession. It really, really has. And as we discussed earlier, there's two ways to do what you do, to be in the news business. One is to be committed to the truth. You are proud of your conservative views and you're open about them, but you actually are focused on the truth, whether it's about ISIS, Fast and Furious, the IRS scandal, Benghazi. And the other one, sadly, is the one that MSNBC, CNN have fallen into, which is we're just going to go after the ratings. The ratings makes our sponsors and our corporate owners happy. And if it means lying, if it means spinning, if it means literally making things up, such as a Scaramucci story, then we will do it. And at the same time, and this is the real kicker, Sean, we're going to say that we're bipartisan and independent. That's
therein lies. But look at Fox, for example. Let me give you an example. I mean, you have, for example, the show Outnumbered. You got so many varying viewpoints on that show. You got my buddy Eric Bolling. Eric Bolling is surrounded by somebody on the left that's a never-Trumper, on the right. Our good friend Ebony Williams, and she is left of center. So you know what? So there you have some. Shep Smith. All right. Shep is a friend I like, but he's so anti-Trump. I mean, went off on a rant last week. That's fine, but it's different. Brett, look at, for example, Special Report, the panel they have. It's the majority of them are never Trump. If you look at the shows even at night, I mean, you can't have more variation of viewpoints than on the five. I take the position that I want to get to the truth. You're right. And I'm getting to the truth. And one of the issues I'm bringing up is Ukrainian influence, collusion, and GPS, Russian collusion, fusion GPS with the Russians helping the Democrats. Nobody in the media even touches these stories.
Think about what we've sunken to, or what certain elements of the mainstream media have sunken to. If you just look at the figures, again, this is just facts. This is Harvard University. More than 90% of the coverage of organs like CNN is about attacking the president. More than 90%. Not even the Soviet Union's media was that bad. If you look at the minutes, if you look at how much in the 42-minute hour section CNN devotes to Russia, they talk more about Russia than America, Sean. That's wrong. That's what Pravda did. That's what Izvestia did when they were the Soviet Union's press organs. The American people want to hear about America. They want to hear about jobs. They want to hear about the economy. They want to hear about defeating ISIS so Americans are safe. When you don't do that, when you spend 90% of your time bashing the duly elected president, you will pay the consequences, and that's what's happening. And they just don't want to hear it, Sean. They do not want to hear it.
Let me ask you about the Ukraine. So here you have a meeting that actually took place. You have the Ukrainians on record saying they were disseminating false information. They wanted to impact our election, the very accusations about Russia. They disseminated false information. They did research with the DNC. A real meeting with a paid DNC operative took place at the embassy. The DNC operative then reports back to the DNC and Robbie Mook and John Podesta in the Clinton campaign. And yet there you have real, proven, actual collusion. Why don't we hear about it?
We don't, because that would be about the truth. Because if you reported about that, you'd have to report about the fact that when she was Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton had to sign off on a uranium deal to that group of investors that at the same time was giving money to her foundation at the same time as her husband was picking up $500,000 speaking fees from Russian companies connected to the Kremlin. The fact is, Sean, you know as well as I do, everybody on the left, including the mainstream media, thought that their candidate was the shoo-in. Remember, the Huffington Post said what? 98% chance of victory on the day of the election. They thought she would win. This is their only way to cope with it. This is a smokescreen. The collusion delusion is the way the left copes with the fact that Hillary lost. There's only one answer, and that's the answer. It is a psychological necessity.
Let me then take it a step further, and I actually pat myself on the back a little bit here because I decided, okay, I'm so sick and tired of the media double standard and a made-up conspiracy theory that has been going on for 11 months. So I've decided to educate as many people as I can about Ukraine and the DNC and the Clinton campaign and about Fusion GPS and about the phony dossier and how a lot of the information came from the Russians to this Christopher Steele guy, how Comey wanted to hire him and how the Democrats repeated it. Even now, Adam Schiff, in large part, because I don't know anyone else that's covering it, had to respond to the Democrats getting help from Ukraine this weekend. Listen.
Let me ask you, I understand Hillary Clinton lost. I understand this effort was not as elaborate as the Russian effort, but was it acceptable or would it have been acceptable for the Democrats to accept help from the Ukrainian government in this campaign?
No, it would be appropriate for the Democrats to accept help from the Ukrainian government. But I think if you look at the Politico article, and we're talking about just a single article here, if you accept all the facts in the article, the scale of what the Russians did is not comparable to anything in that article. If it were, the comparable analogy would be that the Ukrainian president directed the Ukrainian intelligence agencies to steal, to hack Donald Trump's campaign, steal emails, publish them, directed a social media army to influence the election, and sat down, its representatives sat down with Chelsea Clinton and John Podesta, in which they indicated they wanted the dirt on Donald Trump. There's no suggestion anything of that magnitude.
So the scale is different, acknowledge that, but this is problematic. This Ukrainian meeting is problematic in your eyes.
Well, it would be problematic to get any kind of support from a foreign government. But again, I think to compare the two is a bit like comparing bank robbery with writing a check with insufficient funds. Both appropriate money from the bank improperly, but a very different degree of seriousness and involvement, in this case, by a foreign government.
That's wrong. That last part is wrong because if anything, it had a big impact on the campaign. They went after Manafort and it contributed to Manafort leaving. They also have real collusion that from Ukraine, the ambassador, the DNC operative paid to the DNC to the Clinton campaign. And that information was used versus a 20-minute non-meeting. So it's a big difference, isn't it?
It's a massive difference. But let's not, do things that may task somebody who doesn't have legal training, has to look up what the definition of collusion is. America, I'm a proud American now. America is famous because of our common sense. So let's just have one common sense approach to this whole Russia question. The mainstream media has been at this for 9 months.
All right, stay on that thought. I want to talk about the common sense approach to it when we get back. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, a classic media beatdown that fake news now. Well, I wonder if they'll even invite him back at this point. We can't have him on. He attacks us and tells the truth about us. And as we continue to talk to Sebastian Gorka, who is a senior White House aide, joins us. All right, so going forward, to me, the most important thing the president needs to do, we know there's no criminality as it relates to any of the charges of the, the media industrial complex and the opposition party and the fake news industrial complex. So now, to me, the president's got to move forward with his agenda. That means repealing, replacing. That means his economic plan. That means energy independence. That means building, hundreds and hundreds of miles of wall on the southern border. And I'm worried that the Republicans in the House and Senate just aren't keeping up at the speed of Trump, and they're just so pathetically slow with no urgency.
Sean, I really want your listeners to understand one very important message. I travel around, I give talks at conservative audiences and audiences of mixed political makeup. The idea that we inside the West Wing are somehow negatively affected by the way the mainstream media treats us is totally wrong. The idea that we're distracted, we're not working on the agenda, It's just not true. Look at the fact. 25 weeks in office, we have seen illegal migration drop by 73%. We've seen the stock market break 23 records in a row. We've seen jobs start up again. We've seen our Iraqi allies, with our support, crush ISIS in Mosul. That's in 23 weeks. Could you imagine if we'd done that in 24 months under Obama? So the point is the following. We are sticking to the agenda. People like you made it possible that Donald J. Trump could become president. He is now the president, and his Make America Great Again agenda is being realized 24/7. You know what you know how hard he works. You know how hard my boss Steve Bannon works. This is a team that is unstoppable.
Well, I agree, but I also think that the Republicans are at risk if they think they can't keep their promises.
Let's also be deadly honest about who won the election. And the election wasn't really won by the GOP establishment. Well, I think the GOP establishment is starting to understand that. This election was won by a real estate magnate called Donald J. Trump, and he won it despite the establishment in the last 16 years. And I think, if you're wise, if you're a member of the establishment GOP, you're starting to understand that the old way of doing business, the business as usual approach, has been roundly rejected. And think about who rejected it. We had a lot of blue-collar people, Democrats. We had Democrats vote for this president, and the Republicans have to think about what that means for the future of their business as usual attitude.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I'm going to say now, what's the latest with CNN? Did they call you behind the scenes and say, well, if we invite you on, you have to be nice?
Look, we shall wait and see. I mean, somebody suggested that Ben Rhodes and I on Twitter should have a debate hosted by CNN, and I immediately reacted, said, yes, I am waiting. I'm ready to roll.
No. Insist it's on my show. Why would you give that to CNN? They don't deserve it.
I loved it. Let's do it. Okay, Sean, that's a deal. Let's do it.
I'll let you debate anybody you want, any place, anytime. I'll do any debate that Dr. Gorka's involved in.
4 against 1, like they usually do. Let's set it up. We're 4
I'll tell you what. How about 2 on 2? We'll let them pick another person, and you and I will crush them.
Let's do it.
All right, you got it. All right, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, we'll continue.